You see, for far too long, society has either underestimated or misrepresented the role of emotion in a woman's intelligence. It's either been weaponized, used to stereotype and dismiss, or glorified without substance, turning sensitivity into a sort of empty badge of honor. But the truth is far more nuanced and far more powerful. Emotional intelligence isn't about being passive agreeable or endlessly compassionate. It's about perception, precision, power, and perhaps most importantly, it's about control, not in the sense of repression but of integration. The smart woman does not run from her emotions, nor is she ruled by them. She studies them, she listens to them, and then she decides how to act. Now this is a hard-earned skill, because we live in a world where reacting is easy, where outrage is fashionable, where anxiety is common, and where the ability to express emotion is often confused with the ability to understand it. But emotional intelligence isn't about venting or crying on cue. It's about the disciplined awareness of internal states and the deliberate alignment of those states with your goals. It's about knowing that anger might be justified, but not always useful, that fear is often a signal but rarely a conclusion, that love is deepened, not diminished by boundaries. This is where true sophistication begins. A woman who is emotionally intelligent does not crumble when criticized. She does not lash out when misunderstood. She observes the situation. She names what she feels, without judgment, and she processes it like a strategist, not a victim. That's not cold. That's power under control. And in a world that often confuses noise with strength, that kind of calm is revolutionary. But let's be honest. This path isn't glamorous. It doesn't get you applause in the moment, because it requires patience. It demands self-reflection. It forces you to take radical responsibility for your own mental state. And that's terrifying to many people, because it means you can no longer blame the world for your emotional chaos. You have to own it, understand it, train it, and if necessary, transit. This is not the language of modern pop empowerment, but it is the language of real inner freedom. See, the smart woman doesn't just want to feel good, she wants to become formidable. And you can't be formidable if you're constantly destabilized by your own reactions. You can't command a room, a business, a relationship, if you haven't learned to command your inner world first. This is why you must master emotional regulation, not by suppressing your feelings, but by clarifying them, by dissecting them, by understanding their roots, biological, psychological, historical, and then deciding whether they serve you or sabotage you. And here's the philosophical truth: emotions are not random. They are feedback mechanisms, evolutionary tools, and in many cases they are remnants of survival systems we no longer need in the modern world. Fear, for example, is not inherently bad, but unexamined fear leads to paralysis. Sadness isn't weakness, but if it becomes identity, it poisons agency. Emotional intelligence is the art of distinguishing the useful signal from the outdated noise. It's the ability to say, yes, I feel this, but no, it will not dictate what I do next. This is what separates intelligence from reactivity. It's the difference between being a thermometer, constantly responding to the emotional temperature of the world around you, and being a thermostat, setting the tone, shaping the atmosphere, guiding the direction. A smart woman is a thermostat. She walks into a room and brings clarity, not chaos, stability, not drama, because she's anchored, internally ordered. That kind of presence isn't loud, but it is unmistakable. And yes, it takes time. It takes pain, because you will have to undo years of conditioning that taught your emotions were either too much or not enough. You will have to reparent yourself. Study psychology. Observe your patterns. Maybe even sit in silence long enough to hear the beliefs beneath your feelings. But once you've done that, you'll start to see clearly. You'll start to choose wisely. And you'll begin to experience a kind of self-respect that no amount of external validation can replace. At that point, people will call you intimidating. Let them. What they really mean is you're not manipulable anymore. You don't react like they expect you to. You don't chase or retreat. You move deliberately, strategically, and most of all, authentically. Because you've learned the truth. Emotional mastery isn't about being unemotional. It's about becoming unshakable. One of the most destructive illusions a woman can fall into is the belief that her worth must be confirmed by the approval of others. That validation, whether from peers, men, social media, or even family, is the currency she must collect to prove that she matters. This belief is not only limiting, it is enslaving. Because the moment you allow external validation to become your measure of value, you hand over your autonomy. You stop leading your life and instead begin performing it. You become reactive, not reflective. You shift from living out your truth to managing your image. And that's a slow erosion of the self. Now, this isn't just a cultural issue. It's a psychological one. It's rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of where identity comes from. You are not born with a complete self. You build it. And how you build it depends entirely on which feedback loops you feed. If your self-worth is based on applause, you'll live as a puppet. You'll adapt your personality to avoid rejection, to gain praise, to blend in. But here's the problem: any sense of power built on external approval is fragile. It's conditional. It can be taken from you the moment you stop pleasing others. And when that approval disappears, you'll find yourself lost, resentful, and hollow. Because the foundation was never yours to begin with. So what's the alternative? You have to build an internal authority. A psychological center of gravity that doesn't swing with public opinion or emotional neediness. And that takes courage. Because it means stepping away from the herd. It means learning to live without applause, at least temporarily. It means making peace with the fact that not everyone will like you, understand you, or agree with your decisions, and still choosing those decisions anyway, if they are aligned with your deeper values. But that's where real power begins, as in self-respect. In the quiet conviction that you do not exist to entertain, to serve, or to adapt endlessly. You exist to become, to grow, to stand for something, to live according to principles that you've examined, tested, and chosen, not ones you've inherited blindly or absorbed to keep the peace. You see this especially in modern culture, where women are relentlessly encouraged to be seen, to be followed. Social media amplifies this tendency to perform, to curate an image, to live for metrics instead of meaning. But a smart woman doesn't confuse visibility with value. She understands that what is popular is often shallow, and what is true is often quiet. She doesn't strive to be admired, she strives to be aligned. And when you're aligned with your values, with your goals, with your purpose, validation becomes irrelevant. Not because you don't enjoy praise, but because you no longer depend on it. This is psychological independence. And it's rare. Because most people are addicted to being liked. They've spent their whole lives contorting themselves to avoid conflict, to gain action, to be seen as nice. But nice is not a virtue. It's often a mask, a strategy. And while kindness is noble, niceness, especially when it's compulsive, is just fear dressed up as virtue. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of being alone. A smart woman must face that fear head on. She must ask herself, would I still choose this path if no one applauded me for it? Would I still hold this opinion if it cost me popularity? Would I still walk away from this relationship, this job, this situation, even if it made me the villain in someone else's story? Those are hard questions, but they are necessary, because without them, you're not living, you're just maintaining appearances. And that's not intelligence, that's survival. Smart women don't just survive. They build, they lead, they challenge, and they do it with the knowledge that authenticity always alienates the inauthentic. That's the cost of growth. But it's also the price of freedom. At some point, every intelligent woman must choose, will I keep chasing approval? Or will I build something real inside myself that no one can take away? That's a philosophical fork in the road. Because one path leads to dependency, the other to sovereignty. And while sovereignty is lonely at times, it's also liberating. It gives you the power to walk into any room and know you are not there to prove anything. You are there to contribute, to grow, to stand firm. And if necessary, to walk away. Because once you've built inner authority, the world no longer dictates your worth. You do. And that is the beginning of unshakable confidence. The woman who refuses to be defined by applause becomes someone the world cannot ignore. There's a harsh truth that doesn't get said enough: if you don't understand the systems you're living in, you will be controlled by them. Quietly, efficiently, and without resistance. And this is especially relevant for women, because far too often, they're taught to focus on how they feel about the world rather than how the world actually works. But intelligence, real intelligence, isn't just emotional depth. It's structural understanding, it's pattern recognition, it's the willingness to stop personalizing everything and start analyzing it. Because if you can't see the architecture behind the experience, you're just another participant in a game you don't know you're playing. Let's make this practical. You can be emotionally grounded, confident in your values, and full of self-respect, and still get trapped in cycles that exploit your time, your energy, and your potential. Why? Because you never learned how money works. Because you never understood the hierarchy you were entering. Because you never studied the rules of power, persuasion, or negotiation. And so, No matter how empowered you feel, you end up reacting to systems rather than mastering them. And reacting, as we've already established, is the opposite of control. A smart woman studies the terrain. She doesn't just ask, how do I feel? She asks, how does this function? What incentives are at play? What structures are shaping this outcome? That's a systems-oriented mind. It's not just intuitive. It's investigative. And it's essential if you want to move beyond survival and start shaping your own path. Think of the world like a chessboard. Emotions tell you how the game makes you feel, but strategy tells you how the game is won. And unless you understand both, you're either going to burn out or be outmaneuvered. That's not pessimism. It's realism. Because the world is full of systems: economic, political, technological, relational. And all of them operate by rules. Some are visible. Most are not. If you don't study them, you'll internalize your struggle as personal failure. But in truth, your weapon. Many of your frustrations aren't because you're inadequate. They're because you've been moving blindly through invisible systems designed without you in mind. And here's where discipline becomes critical. Because studying systems isn't glamorous. It requires sustained focus. It means reading books instead of scrolling. It means learning the language of finance instead of fantasizing about luxury. It means understanding law, not just demanding justice. You have to educate yourself beyond emotion. That's how you gain leverage. Let's take money, for instance. How many brilliant, driven women avoid financial education because they think it's too technical, too boring, too cold? But finance is just the language of resources. And if you don't speak that language, you will never own your time, your options, or your future. It doesn't matter how empowered you feel. If you're financially illiterate, someone else is steering your life. Or take relationships. How many women confuse chemistry for compatibility, passion for partnership? Without understanding attachment theory, behavioral psychology, or power dynamics, you're not choosing wisely, you're just repeating patterns. And you can't fix patterns you haven't studied. The same goes for career. You could be the most competent person in the room, but if you don't understand how influence works, how networks grow, or how leadership is perceived, your talent will plateau. Not because you lack intelligence, but because you never turned that intelligence outward, toward the systems shaping the outcomes around you. And the deeper truth here is philosophical. We live in a world increasingly dominated by systems that are becoming more complex, more opaque, more automated. If you don't learn how to engage with those systems, how to analyze them, navigate them, and in some cases disrupt them, you'll become irrelevant. Or worse, you'll become controlled by forces you never even noticed. So the question becomes, do you want to be a passive observer in your life, reacting emotionally to every new shift, trend, or disruption? Or do you want to be the kind of woman who anticipates, who adapts, who operates with clarity in a chaotic world? Because the truth is, emotions can give you the why, but systems give you the how. And you need both. It's not either or. It's integration. You're not choosing between being soft or strategic. You're choosing to be fully informed, psychologically and structurally. That's what makes a woman truly dangerous in the best way possible. When you stop just feeling your way through life and start understanding the systems shaping it, you don't just survive. You gain the power to redesign the game entirely. One of the most sobering truths you'll face on the journey to becoming a smart woman is this: you cannot have both integrity and universal approval. Sooner or later, you will have to choose. And in that moment, everything becomes clear. Because when you choose integrity, when you choose to stand by your values, your standards, your vision, you immediately set yourself apart. Not above others, but apart. And that separation is where clarity begins. We live in a world addicted to shortcuts. Easy wins. Fast validation. The pressure to conform, to follow trends, to go along with the crowd. It's immense. And the temptation to sacrifice your standards for acceptance is real. But here's the problem: every time you do it, you chip away at your core. Slowly, quietly, you start to lose yourself in the performance. You start saying yes to things that don't sit right with you. You stay silent when something deserves to be challenged. You tolerate relationships, work environments, conversations that are misaligned with your deepest values. And you tell yourself it's just for now, that it's strategic, that it's harmless. But it's not. Because every time you compromise your integrity for short-term comfort, you reinforce a dangerous pattern that you're willing to betray yourself to keep the peace. That you're more concerned with appearing agreeable than being real. And once you internalize that, you don't just lose trust in others. You lose trust in yourself. A smart woman refuses to play that game. Not because she's stubborn, but because she understands the long-term cost of pretending. She understands that popularity is a moving target, that chasing acceptance is an endless, exhausting pursuit, that once you start living for applause, your whole life becomes a performance, and one that can be cancelled at any time. So what does it look like to live with integrity? It means making decisions that are rooted in principle, not pressure. It means asking yourself not, will they like me if I do this? But, will I still like myself? It means being willing to take the harder path, the less glamorous, less celebrated, sometimes lonelier path, because it's the one that allows you to sleep at night with your soul intact. This is not a call to be rigid or self-righteous. It's a call to be rooted, because there is a fundamental difference between being flexible and being formless. Flexibility allows you to adapt without losing who you are. Formlessness means you become whatever others want you to be. That may win you temporary comfort, but it will never earn you lasting respect. And here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. Integrity often requires sacrifice. It may mean walking away from a relationship that looks perfect on the outside but violates your boundaries. It may mean turning down opportunities that conflict with your ethics. It may mean standing alone when the crowd is going in the opposite direction. And yes, that's hard, but it's necessary. Because easy doesn't build character. Easy doesn't build resilience. And easy certainly doesn't build legacy. You have to stop thinking like a consumer of life and start thinking like a builder. Builders don't take shortcuts. They think long-term. They don't just ask, what do I get today? They ask, what am I becoming over time? That's the mindset that creates excellence, not just success. That's the mindset that allows you to move through the world with strength, not desperation. And it's a mindset grounded in truth. Because when you choose integrity, what you gain is infinitely more valuable than what you lose. You gain self-respect. You gain alignment. You gain the ability to look in the mirror and not flinch. And that kind of peace cannot be bought. It can only be earned. It's worth saying this too. People may not always understand your decisions. Some will call you cold, difficult, arrogant, or ungrateful. Let them. Their opinions are reflections of their expectations, not your character. And it's not your job to live small just so others can feel comfortable. It's your job to rise. Quietly, steadily, without asking for permission. Because in the end, smart women are not the ones who win the popularity contest. They're the ones who build something real, something that lasts. And they do it not by bending, but by standing. When you choose integrity over comfort, you don't just shape your reputation. You shape your destiny.